Jack Harrington, billionaire and 8th degree Aikido black belt, blocked the elevator door, staring down at Mike Reeves, the maintenance worker half his size. "I hear you know martial arts." Jack's voice echoed through the executive floor. "Spar with me tomorrow." The room fell silent as executives exchanged smirks. Mike glanced at his daughter's photo in his wallet, then looked up with unexpected confidence. "Only if you promise not to cry." Mike Reeves woke at 5 a.m., as he did every morning, careful not to make noise that might wake Emma. The small Brooklyn apartment was quiet except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and occasional car passing on the street below. He moved through his morning routine with practiced efficiency: shower, shave, dress in his Sterling Technologies maintenance uniform. In the kitchen, he prepared Emma's lunch. Peanut butter sandwich, with the crusts cut off, apple slices drizzled with lemon juice to prevent browning, and a small note with a stick figure drawing of the two of them. "Dad plus Emma equals Team Forever," it read, just like the ones Lucy used to make before cancer took her 3 years ago. Mike allowed himself one moment of stillness, looking at his daughter's lunchbox, before moving to prepare breakfast. At 6:15, he gently woke his 8-year-old daughter, helping her pick clothes for school while pancakes sizzled on the griddle. "Will you be home for dinner tonight, Daddy?" Emma asked, her small fingers attempting to braid her own hair. Mike knelt down, taking over the braiding with surprising dexterity for hands so work-roughened. "I've got the late shift, Pumpkin. Mrs. Garcia will pick you up from after-school program. But I'll be home to tuck you in, promise." He secured the braid with a purple elastic, Emma's current favorite color. "And tomorrow's Saturday, Pancake Mountains and that science museum, remember?" Emma's face lit up as she wrapped her small arms around his neck, syrup-sticky fingers and all. This was what mattered. This was everything. By 7:35, Mike had dropped Emma at school and was entering the gleaming glass headquarters of Sterling Technologies. He nodded to the security guards who, unlike most employees, actually acknowledged his existence. As he changed into his work boots in the maintenance room, his supervisor handed him the day's tasks. HVAC issue in the executive conference room. Top priority. Some big meeting today. Mike nodded, gathering his tools. He'd been at Sterling for almost 3 years now, after the small tech startup where he'd worked as a junior engineer had folded. With Lucy's medical bills and a 5-year-old to raise alone, he'd taken the first steady job available. Maintenance at Sterling paid decently, and offered the flexible hours he needed for Emma. Few here knew he'd once been on track to graduate with honors in electrical engineering, before putting his education on hold to care for his wife. 50 floors up, Alexandra Sterling was already in her 3rd meeting of the day, though it was barely 9 a.m. At 35, she was one of the youngest CEOs in the tech industry, having taken over Sterling Technologies when her father, Jack Harrington, stepped back from daily operations 2 years ago. She sat at the head of the conference table, her posture perfect, her charcoal suit impeccable, as she listened to quarterly projections that fell short of expectations. The board members, mostly men her father's age, watched her with barely disguised skepticism. She could read their thoughts as clearly as if they'd spoken them aloud. Too young. Too female. Only here because of Daddy. Alex had stopped trying to prove them wrong. Instead, she simply outperformed them at every turn. "These numbers aren't acceptable," she said, her voice cool and measured. "I want revised strategies on my desk by end of day tomorrow." As the executives filed out, murmuring among themselves, Alex remained seated, scrolling through emails on her tablet. She didn't look up when the maintenance worker entered, barely registering his presence as he moved to the air conditioning unit. Just another invisible person keeping the machinery of Sterling Technologies running while the important people made decisions. She had 1,000 more pressing concerns than a too-warm conference room. In the service corridor, Mike carefully disassembled the executive floor's HVAC control panel. The problem was immediately apparent to his trained eye: a loose connection and a firmware issue. As he worked, he could hear raised voices from the adjacent conference room. Something about a security vulnerability in their flagship product and potential client data exposure. He worked quietly, absorbing the information without meaning to. The fix was simple, something he could have explained in 5 minutes if anyone had bothered to ask the maintenance guy with an almost complete engineering degree. But that wasn't his place here. He reassembled the panel, tested the system, and quietly let himself out as another meeting stormed in. Alex barely slept that night, reviewing security reports and damage assessments. By morning, what had been a concerning vulnerability had exploded into a full-blown crisis. Sterling Technologies' client management system had been compromised, potentially exposing millions of users' data. The company's stock was already dropping in pre-market trading. Her father had called 3 times. The last time, His message had been clear. Fix this, or I'm stepping back in. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise. Everything she'd worked for hung in the balance. The emergency meeting in the executive conference room had been going for 2 hours with no resolution. Security experts, system architects, and executives talked over each other, pointing fingers and offering temporary patches that would amount to digital band-aids on a hemorrhaging wound. Alex maintained her composure, but inside, panic was building. This could be the end of Sterling Technologies, and certainly the end of her leadership. Mike was polishing the brass fixtures in the hallway outside, half listening to the increasingly desperate meeting. He understood more than they might expect. The vulnerability they were describing was complex, but not unfixable. When the meeting broke for a 15-minute recess, Mike made a decision that surprised even himself. On the back of a maintenance request form, he quickly sketched a system architecture and wrote out a potential solution, rerouting authentication through a secondary encrypted channel, while implementing a progressive lockdown that would protect existing data without shutting down the entire system. He hesitated only briefly before approaching a young analyst who had always been kind enough to thank him when he fixed things. "Excuse me, Miss Chen? I couldn't help overhearing. This might help." He handed her the paper, then quickly returned to his work, not waiting for the dismissal he expected. The young analyst glanced at the paper, then did a double take, reading more carefully. When the meeting reconvened, she tried to introduce the idea, but was quickly talked over by the chief technology officer. "We need serious solutions from security professionals, not random suggestions." The paper was set aside, eventually sliding into the trash as the argument continued. Mike saw it happen, shrugged slightly, and moved on to his next task. It wasn't the first time his knowledge had been dismissed, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. That evening, as executives continued arguing without resolution, Alex found herself alone in the conference room, staring at projection screens filled with red alert indicators. In frustration, she knocked a stack of papers to the floor. As she knelt to gather them, she noticed the crumpled maintenance form in the trash with diagrams drawn on the back. Curious, she smoothed it out, studying the neat handwriting and surprisingly sophisticated technical solution. At the bottom was a simple notation. M. Reeves, Maintenance. Alex stared at the paper, then at the error messages on screen. Could it really be this straightforward? And who was M. Reeves? 2 floors down, Mike was working late, having arranged for his neighbor to watch Emma for an extra hour. A system crash had affected the climate controls, and the entire research division was overheating. As he rewired a control panel, he heard the click of heels approaching and looked up to see Alexandra Sterling herself walking purposefully toward him. He stood quickly, wiping his hands on his uniform pants. "Are you M. Reeves?" she asked, without preamble. He nodded, suddenly aware of how he must look, sweaty, disheveled, clearly not executive material. She held up his crumpled diagram. "Did you write this?" Another nod. She studied him with new interest. "Explain it to me." "In detail." Mike hesitated only briefly before pointing to his diagram. "Your authentication system is routing everything through a single channel. It's efficient but vulnerable. If you create this parallel structure," he traced the lines with a calloused finger, "you can reroute critical authentication while maintaining operations. It's like..." He searched for an analogy, creating a secondary circulatory system while the heart is still beating. Alex followed his explanation, asking sharp questions that revealed her own technical expertise. For 20 minutes, they stood in the service hallway, maintenance worker and CEO, discussing complex systems architecture as equals. When he finished, she looked at him with new eyes. "Where did you learn this?" "I was 3 semesters away from my electrical engineering degree at MIT when my wife got sick," he said simply. "Cancer. Had to drop out to care for her and our daughter." He didn't add more. Didn't mention the mountains of medical debt that remained even after Lucy was gone, or how a maintenance job with flexible hours was the only way he could be there for Emma. Alex nodded once, decision made. "Come with me." She led him back to the executive conference room, where the crisis team was still arguing in circles. Conversation stopped abruptly as she entered with the maintenance worker. "This is Mike Reeves," she announced. "He has a solution we're going to implement immediately." The room erupted in objections. The CTO was particularly vocal. "With all due respect, Miss Sterling, we need expert opinions in a crisis of this magnitude." "And I've found one," Alex replied coolly. "Mr. Reeves, please explain your approach again." Mike took a deep breath and began explaining, his voice gaining confidence as he spoke. He used simple language, avoiding jargon when possible, illustrating complex concepts with everyday analogies. When he finished, the room was silent until a deep voice spoke from the doorway. "It'll work. Jack Harrington, founder of Sterling Technologies and Alexandra's father, stepped into the room. He'd been listening from the threshold. It's elegant, practical, and can be implemented without total shutdown. He looked at Mike with keen interest. "You're the maintenance man?" "Yes, sir," Mike answered, meeting the billionaire's gaze steadily. Jack turned to the CTO. "Implement his solution. Now." His tone left no room for argument. As the team scrambled to follow orders, Jack approached Mike. "You have more to offer than fixing air conditioners, son. We should talk when this is over." The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Mike found himself working alongside the development team, guiding the implementation of his solution. He'd called Mrs. Garcia, arranging for Emma to stay overnight, something he hated doing but couldn't avoid. By dawn of the second day, the system was secure, client data protected, and the crisis contained. Stock prices had stabilized, and the board was cautiously optimistic. Mike, exhausted but satisfied, was preparing to go home when Alexandra found him in the break room. "The team lead says it was your troubleshooting that got us through the final implementation," she said, pouring herself coffee. She looked different, her perfect suit wrinkled, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, dark circles under her eyes. More human somehow. Mike shrugged. "Just did what needed doing. My father was impressed. That doesn't happen often." She hesitated. "He wants to offer you a position in our cybersecurity division." Mike stared into his coffee cup. "I appreciate that, Miss Sterling. But I have a daughter who needs me home evenings and weekends. Flexible hours are more important than career advancement right now." Alex studied him with newfound respect. In her world, no one chose family over career, certainly not her father, and not her either. "I understand. But perhaps we could discuss alternatives." She handed him her business card with her direct number written on the back. "Think about it." That evening, Mike was pushing Emma on the swings at the small park near their apartment when he spotted Alexandra Sterling walking along the path, phone to her ear, still in her work clothes. She noticed them at the same moment, hesitated, then approached as Mike helped Emma slow her swing. "Mr. Reeves," she nodded, then smiled at Emma. "And who's this?" "I'm Emma. Are you Daddy's boss? You're really pretty." Emma's directness made Mike wince slightly, but Alexandra laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her face. "I guess I am your dad's boss. I'm Alex." She knelt to Emma's level. "And thank you. I like your purple hair ties." "Purple's my favorite color," Emma confided. "Daddy does my hair every morning. He's the best at braids, even better than Mrs. Garcia." Alex glanced up at Mike with surprise. He shrugged, slightly embarrassed. "You learn what you need to learn." A comfortable silence fell, broken by Emma's question. "Do you want to see me do the monkey bars?" "Daddy taught me last week." As they watched Emma cross the monkey bars, Alex spoke quietly. "You've done an amazing job with her. She makes it easy." "She's the strongest person I know," Mike replied, his eyes never leaving his daughter. For the next week, Sterling Technologies worked to repair the damage from the security breach. Mike returned to his maintenance duties, but now people nodded to him in hallways, and the system architects occasionally sought his input on technical questions. Alexandra found herself looking for him, manufacturing reasons to be in parts of the building where he might be working. Something about his quiet competence and clear priorities intrigued her. On Friday afternoon, a company-wide email announced a press conference to address the security incident. Alex had instructed her communications team to prepare a statement crediting the maintenance worker whose insight had saved the company millions. As executives gathered in the auditorium, she noticed Mike at the back, in a clean but clearly well-worn button-down shirt and khakis, instead of his uniform, the best he could do on short notice. When it came time to explain the technical resolution, Alex surprised everyone by inviting Mike to the podium. Reluctantly, he joined her, explaining in simple terms how the problem had been solved. No technical jargon, no corporate speak, just clear, concise information that even the financial reporters could understand. The audience responded with appreciative nods. When he finished, the applause was genuine. As Mike stepped away from the microphone, Jack Harrington took the stage. "Sterling Technologies has always recognized talent, whatever package it comes in," he announced. "Today, I'm pleased to announce the formation of a new Security Innovations division." He turned to Mike. "And I'd like to offer the leadership position to Mike Reeves, whose innovative thinking saved this company." The crowd applauded again as Mike returned to the microphone. "I'm honored, sir. But I need to be clear, my daughter comes first. I can't take a position that would keep me away from her." Jack looked momentarily nonplussed. In his experience, no one turned down opportunities like this. But Alex stepped forward. What if we designed the position around your needs? Part-time, flexible hours, option to work remotely when necessary. Mike considered, looking between father and daughter. I'd need to think about it. Later that evening, a knock at Mike's apartment door revealed Alexandra Sterling, holding a folder of papers. May I come in? I have a proposal I think might work for both of us. The apartment was small, but immaculately kept. Children's artwork covered the refrigerator, and schoolbooks were neatly stacked on the kitchen table. Emma was already in pajamas, working on homework. She brightened when she saw Alex. Are you here for dinner? Daddy made spaghetti. It's the best. Alex found herself accepting the unexpected dinner invitation. As they ate at the small kitchen table, she watched Mike help Emma with her math homework between bites, patient and encouraging. This was so far from her own childhood of nannies and boarding schools that it felt like observing an alien civilization, warm, connected, prioritizing love over achievement. When Emma went to bed, Alex presented her proposal. A 20-hour-per-week position as security consultant, with flexible scheduling and the option to bring Emma to the office when necessary. Why are you doing this? Mike asked directly, studying the contract. Alex considered several professional answers before settling on the truth. Because I've never seen anyone turn down power and position for love, it's educational. She smiled slightly. And because you're exactly what Sterling Technologies needs, someone who sees the world differently than we do. The following week, Mike started his new role, maintaining his maintenance job part-time while building the security innovations team. Word of his unusual career path spread through the company, and soon other employees, with unconventional backgrounds or ideas, were seeking him out. Alex found herself stopping by his modest office regularly, ostensibly to check on progress but increasingly to enjoy his straightforward perspective on business and life. Jack Harrington observed these developments with interest. He'd built Sterling Technologies from nothing, transforming himself from engineer to business titan through sheer force of will and strategic brilliance. Along the way, he'd lost his wife to divorce, and nearly lost his daughter to resentment. Watching Alex soften around Mike and his daughter stirred something long dormant in him, regret, perhaps, or hope. One morning, Jack found Mike in the company gym before working hours, practicing what appeared to be martial arts forms. Jack, himself a lifelong martial artist, recognized the disciplined movements of Aikido. He watched silently, until Mike noticed him, and stopped, somewhat embarrassed. Don't stop on my account, Jack said. Shodan? He asked, inquiring about Mike's rank. Nidan, Mike corrected, naming the second-degree black belt rank. Though it's been years since I trained regularly. Jack nodded appreciatively. Hachidan, he replied, indicating his own 8th-degree black belt. Perhaps we should train together sometime. Mike smiled politely, assuming the billionaire was being generous to the new employee. That would be an honor, sir. The next day, as Mike was reviewing security protocols with his small team, Jack Harrington appeared in the doorway. I'd like to borrow Mr. Reeves, he announced, brooking no argument. Mike followed him to the executive elevator, puzzled when they ascended to the top floor. Jack led him to a private dojo, complete with traditional mats and training weapons. I wasn't joking about training together, Jack said, indicating the guest gi, uniform, laid out. Unless you're too busy? Mike recognized the challenge in the older man's voice. This was a test, though of what, he wasn't certain. Not too busy for this, sir. For the next hour, they trained together. Jack clearly the superior technician, but Mike surprisingly adaptable and quick. From the observation window, Alex watched with growing amazement as her father, who had never shown interest in any employee, dedicated time to personally training Mike. She couldn't hear their conversation, but could see the genuine respect developing between them. Over the next 2 weeks, these training sessions became regular, happening every few days before normal business hours. Mike found himself enjoying the challenge and the rare opportunity to practice his art. Jack, for his part, seemed to relish having a dedicated student again. Their conversations during training ranged from security architecture to business philosophy to, eventually, fatherhood. You've done well with your daughter, Jack commented during a water break. Better than I did with mine. Mike considered his response carefully. Different circumstances. You built an empire. Jack's expression turned rueful. And lost a family in the process. Alexandra's mother couldn't handle being married to my ambition. Can't blame her, really. It's not too late, Mike ventured. Emma still makes me drawings, even though I've missed dance recitals for work emergencies. Jack studied him thoughtfully. Perhaps. Though Alexandra might be less forgiving than an 8-year-old. The conversation shifted Mike's understanding of both Harringtons. He began to notice the subtle ways Alex sought her father's approval, and how Jack's gruffness masked genuine concern for his daughter. The dynamics reminded him of his own complicated relationship with his father, healed only in the final months of his dad's life. That Friday afternoon, Mike was supervising system upgrades when Alex appeared at his office door. "Got a minute?" she asked, uncharacteristically hesitant. He nodded, gesturing to the chair across from his desk, still the most modest office on the executive floor, by his choice. "I wanted to thank you," she began. "My father seems different lately. More present. He mentioned you've been training together." Mike shrugged. "We have common interests." "He doesn't have common interests with anyone," Alex countered with a slight smile. "He's Jack Harrington. The world exists to interest him." She leaned forward. "Whatever you're doing, it's working. He actually called me by my name yesterday instead of the CEO. First time in 2 years. He's proud of you," Mike said simply. "May not show it well, but it's obvious in how he talks about you." Alex looked startled, then skeptical. "You don't need to manage up, Mike. Your position is secure. Not managing anything. Just telling you what I see." He checked his watch. "Sorry, I need to leave by 5:30. Emma's science project is due tomorrow." Alex nodded, standing to leave, then hesitated. "Would you like company? I'm pretty good at science projects." That evening found Alexandra Sterling sitting at Mike's kitchen table, helping Emma create a model solar system while Mike prepared dinner. The domesticity of the scene struck Alex as both foreign and strangely comfortable. In her world of executive dinners and networking events, simple moments like these didn't exist. Emma chattered happily, asking Alex questions about the real space program and if Sterling Technologies ever worked with NASA. By the time the model was complete and dinner was served, Alex felt more relaxed than she had in months. "You should come for Pancake Mountains tomorrow," Emma announced as Alex prepared to leave. "Daddy makes them every Saturday morning. They're the bestest in the universe." Mike looked embarrassed. "Emma, Miss Sterling probably has plans." "Actually, I don't," Alex interrupted, surprising herself. "I'd love to try these famous Pancake Mountains, if the invitation is open." The simple Saturday breakfast stretched into a trip to the Science Museum, where Alex found herself enjoying the exhibits through Emma's enthusiastic perspective. Mike watched with quiet amazement as the normally reserved CEO got down on her knees to examine interactive displays with his daughter, explaining complex concepts in terms Emma could understand. By afternoon, when they stopped for ice cream, the three of them had fallen into an easy companionship that felt surprisingly natural. On Monday morning, Jack Harrington stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor, noting the subtle change in his daughter's demeanor as she spoke with Mike near the conference room. There was a softness in her expression he hadn't seen in years. Good, he thought. Perhaps there was hope for Alexandra finding the balance that had eluded him his entire career. The day proceeded normally until mid-afternoon, when Jack made an unusual appearance at the Security Division's weekly meeting. He listened intently as Mike presented upcoming initiatives, asking pointed questions that revealed his own technical expertise. As the meeting concluded, Jack made an unexpected announcement. "I'd like to invite you all to observe a demonstration in the executive training room tomorrow morning. Mr. Reeves has agreed to spar with me, Aikido against Aikido. Should be educational." The team murmured in surprise as Jack turned to Mike with a challenging smile. 8 a.m. sharp. Don't be late." As the room cleared, Mike approached Jack with confusion. "Sir, I never agreed to." "Of course you didn't," Jack interrupted. "I'm Jack Harrington. People don't agree with me, they comply." His expression softened slightly. "Consider it a corporate team building exercise. Unless you're concerned about the outcome?" Mike recognized the calculated provocation for what it was. "Not concerned, sir. Just wondering about the purpose." Jack's eyes twinkled with uncharacteristic mischief. "Sometimes the purpose reveals itself in the doing, Mr. Reeves." 8 a.m. With that, he strode from the room, leaving Mike bewildered. Word of the upcoming sparring match spread through Sterling Technologies like wildfire. By end of day, office pools were forming, heavily favoring the founder despite the 40-year age difference. Alex cornered her father in his private office, demanding an explanation. "What are you doing? Mike is a valuable employee, not entertainment." Jack regarded his daughter calmly. "When did you start calling him Mike instead of Mr. Reeves?" Alex faltered, caught off guard by the observation. "That's not the point." "Perhaps it's exactly the point," Jack replied enigmatically. "Don't worry. I have no intention of damaging your security consultant. Quite the opposite." The next morning, a crowd gathered in the executive training room, senior management, security team members, and other curious employees. Mike arrived precisely at 8, wearing a simple white gi with a black belt worn from years of use. He bowed respectfully to the training space before entering, centered himself on the mat, and began gentle warm-up exercises, ignoring the murmurs around him. Jack arrived moments later in an equally traditional but clearly more expensive uniform, his 8th degree black belt crisp and bright compared to Mike's faded one. The crowd fell silent as the two men bowed to each other. From the front row, Alex watched with concern, while Emma, given special permission to attend before school, bounced excitedly on her seat. "Standard rules," Jack announced. "Full contact, first pinning submission ends the match." He smiled at Mike with genuine warmth. "Ready when you are, son." What followed astonished everyone, except perhaps Jack himself. Mike moved with unexpected grace and precision, meeting the older man's techniques with perfect timing. Where Jack had power and decades of experience, Mike showed adaptability and creative responses. For 15 minutes, they exchanged techniques, throws, and counters in what increasingly resembled a choreographed demonstration rather than a contest. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the maintenance worker matched the billionaire technique for technique. Finally, Jack executed a complex throw that sent Mike rolling across the mat. But instead of yielding, Mike rolled smoothly to his feet and countered with a technique that used Jack's momentum against him, bringing the older man gently but firmly to the ground in a perfect pin. A collective gasp went up from the audience, followed by spontaneous applause as Jack tapped the mat in submission. Mike immediately released him, offering a hand up with a respectful bow. Jack accepted both, then turned to the astonished crowd. "And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why appearances can be deceiving. Thank you all for coming." He bowed once more to Mike before leaving the mat, effectively ending the event as employees began filing out, discussing what they'd witnessed. Alex approached the mat where Mike was gathering his things, Emma bouncing around him with excitement. "That was amazing, Daddy. You beat Mr. Jack." Mike shook his head. "It wasn't about beating anyone, Pumpkin. It was about showing our best selves." He looked up at Alex. "Though I'm still not entirely sure what it was about." Alex studied him with new understanding. "I think it was my father's way of making a point. He's not subtle." She hesitated, then continued more softly. "Would you and Emma like to have dinner tonight? At my place, for a change?" That evening, as they sat on Alexandra's balcony overlooking the city, Emma having fallen asleep on the couch inside, Mike finally asked the question that had been bothering him. "Why did your father really set up that match?" Alex considered the question, watching the city lights below. "I think he wanted to show everyone that value can come from unexpected places. And maybe," she smiled slightly, "maybe he wanted to show me specifically that it's okay to see you as more than just an employee." "And do you?" Mike asked. His voice quiet in the evening air. Alex turned to face him, her usual corporate mask completely gone. "I'm starting to. It's unfamiliar territory for me." "For me too," Mike admitted. "After Lucy died, I never thought about anything beyond getting through each day with Emma. And now? Now I'm thinking there might be room for more than just survival." His hand moved slowly across the space between them, hesitating just short of hers. Alex closed the distance, her fingers lightly touching his. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For reminding me that true strength isn't about position or power. It's about having the courage to care about something more than success." Mike smiled, looking through the window at his sleeping daughter. "The most important lessons I've learned came from Emma." As their hands remained connected under the night sky, neither felt the need to define what was happening between them. There would be time for that. For now, it was enough to recognize that sometimes strength comes in unexpected packages, and sometimes the most valuable things in life aren't found in corner offices or executive suites, but in the quiet moments of connection, when we recognize each other's true worth.